Κυρίες και κύριοι, καλησπέρα. Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm delighted that despite the difficult circumstances and the challenging times we are living in, we're given the opportunity to meet even long distance. I would like to sincerely thank Isalosnet and Real-Time Graduate for coordinating this initiative that allow us to get together and discuss some very interesting topics. It is true that a year ago, we're all expecting the dawn of the new decade, which was primarily connected with the implementation of the IMO 2020 sulfur cap regulation. At that time, little did we know that COVID-19 pandemic was hidden in the corner and would change dramatically both our everyday life and the reality of our business. Obviously, the shipping industry has been heavily affected by this pandemic, as every other industry. Shipping, though, in contrast to the other industries, remained active throughout all these months, ensuring the smooth transportation of products and energy around the globe. Our vital industry that has kept going when others have stopped. And it is more than true that without ships moving commodities and goods, the world will feel a very different place. So shipping has a tremendous success story to tell. But equally, we need to reflect on the impact on our most important people, the hundreds and thousands of seafarers who are on board vessels everywhere, worldwide, many of them for much longer than they were contracted, in many cases at heavy personal cost. Furthermore, a number of other important issues occurred as a result of the pandemic, such as disruption of surveys, port inspection, attendance on board by superintendents, service engineers, delays on provision on spare parts, delays on bunker analysis, in other words, delays and disruptions of maintenance, raising several damage concerns. All the above are of significant importance as they may put ship and crew safely at risk at any time. To comment on these issues and discuss, we have a distinguished panel of guests from the maritime industry to help us understand what happened and to learn what we may do next. So allow me to introduce our panelists for today, starting, and I hope I pronounce the name correctly, from Ms. Maja Markovčić Kostelac, Executive Director of EMSA. I would like to present Ms. Susanna Laskaridis, Director of Laskaridis Shipping, Ms. Milena Papas, Commercial Director of Star Bulk Carriers Corporation, Mr. Andreas Hadjipetrou, Managing Director of Columbia Ship Management, Mr. Spiridon Tarassis, General Manager of Olympic Vision Maritime Company and Vice Chairman of Intercargo, and last but not least, Professor George Theocharidis, Professor of Maritime Law and Policy at World Maritime University. I'm certain that we are going to have a very interesting and fruitful conversation, and I propose we start right now by getting the big picture first. So my first question is addressed to Mrs. Papas and Mrs. Laskaridis, and I would like to ask them, according to your experience, what were the most significant challenges that arose during the recent pandemic with regards to ship and crew safety? Ms. Papas, would you like to start?
Yes, good afternoon. Thank you, first of all, for having me. It's a great pleasure, and it's a great initiative from Isalos and Real Graduates. So I would like to start this very hot topic, in fact, because the ship's condition and safety is heavily dependent upon the crew's abilities, skills, and the well-being, which, due to the COVID, more so than ever, has been disrupted. We see one of the challenges that we're facing is the risk of accidents happening on board. This, unlike previous times, pre-COVID era, is facing the two problems. First of all, doctors may be unwilling to board a vessel when in port because either if they go on board, they have to quarantine for 2 weeks. So having to quarantine for 2 weeks means a loss of income for them. So they don't favor that option, and they shy away from going on board the vessels. Then in urgent situations, say like a stroke or heart attack, if there's a sign of fever, the local authorities do not allow the injured party to disembark. So these things, knowing the fact that you are unable to get the proper medical attention that everyone else is getting, is very straining upon the crew members and creates exceptional tension, fatigue, psychological stress, which is very difficult to deal with. In combination with the difficulty and even suspension in the beginning of the COVID of crew changes, in the beginning of the lockdown, we saw that there were no crew changes allowed. This was something that it was easy to explain to the crews, as they didn't know for how long this would last. And this is something that they understood. In some cases, they even felt safer on board the vessels than ashore. But as time went by, countries had to come out of lockdown. The fact that there were countries that were part of the MLC and allegedly, and I put it in inverted commas, willing to facilitate crew changes, but then in practicality, we faced huge procedures, flight bans, problems with immigration rules, visas, paperwork, and so on and so forth, making it literally impossible to make these crew changes, especially the maritime hubs which profit from ship and from the shipping world. So from the crew side, these are the key points. And of course, this is intertwined with vessel safety because a tired crew means that it's going to lead to more problems aboard the vessels. We see, I read in Bloomberg very recently, about a month ago, that 3/4 of the vessel accidents happen due to human error. So having stressed out crews, tired because of the long periods on board without prospects of disembarking and repatriating, means that they're prone to more mistakes and accidents. This, in combination with the fact that it's impossible to board people for inspections, for service engineers, for fitters, makers, to improve the condition of the vessels, to rectify problems, is what leads to more detentions, to more fines, to more deficiencies, and inabilities to get supplies, spares, even victualling. So these are very important problems that have to be addressed and are at the core of our shipping sector at the moment.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Papas, for your views. And I will leave the floor to Mrs. Lascaridis to comment further.
Yes, well, actually, I think Milena has covered most of the topics because they are indeed intertwined. The issues that arose affected both ships, as you said earlier as well, reduced surveys, port inspections were delayed in many cases, vital inspections for the ship were delayed, specialist engineers could not board the vessel, even while having to do social distancing in many cases. There were disruptions during inspection. Of course, we saw from a ship management point of view, from a technical management, that even the officers could not send the people on board that they would normally send, even with as often as they normally send them. So that definitely created a lapse in the actual image of the office, of what the condition of the vessel is. And of course, the most important was the crew changes, or the lack of crew changes, which leads in lapse of judgment, as Milena says, and as we have seen in some of the cases of quite large accidents recently, even the large bulk carrier on Mauritius that recently grounded, they found out that it was because the crew was trying to reach an internet signal to contact their families. We have to remember that COVID did not only affect the crews on board, so they were not only worried about their health, but also the health of their families, in some cases heavily affected areas, with very heavy quarantining rules or very heavy medical problems in order to face the pandemic. So of course we can understand how this affected them on a psychological level as well. So I think all in all, these indeed are intertwined. But of course we have to remember that all of the above do bring a rise to a huge source of legal implications as well, that we're only starting to see what they are, and they are of course continuing, and they will continue in the near future.
Thank you, Mrs. Laskaridis. And I will stay on the point you mentioned about the psychological stress. It is true that being on board the ship far beyond the expiration of their contract has been the main fallout for seafarers. Mm-hmm. Weddings, births, maybe even the last day of the loved ones have been missed. So our seafarers have suffered a lot from psychological stress. Mr. Tarasis, can I ask you, what were the most important challenges in managing the psychological support of crews that face long delays in their replacement?
Hi from me also. Thank you for inviting me to this seminar. Imagine somebody stranded on a ship or on an island without being able to communicate with his family, without having food, without having a doctor, without having life. Tell me what psychological help you can give him from far away. Nevertheless, we tried a lot of things, and we are trying a lot of things by providing more internet to the vessels so they can communicate with their families, more calling minutes. We provide them with remote medical help, more than we used to do. It's very difficult really to do things for the crew that are on board the vessel, and it's also difficult to do things for the crew that are waiting outside to go on board the vessel when they can. We give them, of course, some advance salary so they can live while waiting, but again, this is not enough. Believe me, it's something very difficult and something that we cope with, but we don't know how much we can cope with. And this is very important for everybody to hear and to know. We need solutions, and we need them fast. We passed the first 3-4 months examining what COVID is, how it develops, and what is doing to the people. But now we have knowledge, we have tourists going around, and we don't have crew going on board the vessel or going out of the vessel. So this is very important to do. One more thing that we did for the crew on board is to have a direct communication line that they can call anytime, any day, that they feel that they need psychological support. Of course, this is something not everybody does, but there are companies that provide it for money, of course, because ship owners have to pay for this also. But some companies do it also by their own support. Things are difficult, and as I told you, the only thing that we can do is be with them as much as we can, communicate with them as much as we can to find out what the actual problems is, and support them the way that they let us to do it. I think this is the most important, and the most important thing is to get solutions fast.
Thank you, Mr. Tarasis. And I would like to hear Mr. Hadjipetrou point of view on this topic. Δεν σας ακούμε. You're on mute.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Thank you for the question, and thank you for the invitation to participate. You know, what I heard so far is really the experience of all of us involved in managing ships and making sure that somehow the show goes on. With regards to lessons learned, I believe that all the challenges mentioned earlier obviously lead to lessons that they have to do with our communication abilities and our commitment towards our crews. And if there is a lesson that the operators have learned, in my opinion, is that we have to be closer to our seafarers, whether we like it or not. The seafarers are really on the top of the chain when it comes to safety, security, and so on. From the office point of view, we are there to support and guide and lead towards certain directions. We have to make sure that compliance is there, but the point is we need motivated crew, and perhaps some of the lessons that we have learned as well, or we have tried to implement, is what has been mentioned earlier by Mr. Tarasis, more video calls, more internet for the seafarers. From our point of view, we have had the mental health hotline already being available to the seafarers via WhatsApp to independent psychologists already a year ago. So this is now been implemented and used more by the seafarers. But we did also other smaller things to boost the morale of the people. For example, we have encouraged all the seafarers to come up with ideas how to design face masks for the company. So we received about 300 designs, and then the chairman eventually and the board decided which 10 were the winners, and then we printed all the masks and we sent them back to the ships, so that we created, let's say, the awareness. And other initiatives like a fitness campaign where we've sent TRX on board the ship so that the seafarers can concentrate as well on their fitness and so on. So from our perspective, looking on the positive side of the situation is that the shipping industry is indeed resilient to the situation. The ships are running, of course, with all the problems that we are all facing on a day-to-day, but this is a success story for the shipping industry, and I think this is how we should look at it.
Thank you. Thanks a lot. I hear from both of you that you strongly argued that communication is of vital importance, as not only does it create a sense of connectivity between the onboard crew members and the executives located at the office, but also because it ensures the on-time discussion of issues that may arise, giving the opportunity for necessary actions to be taken timely. Mrs. Laskaridis, how can a shipping management company safeguard and enhance an effective communication channel between executives at the office and crew on board a managed vessel?
Considering that this is, let's say, the main target in non-COVID times as well, the constant effective communication between office and vessel, unfortunately, this has been, let's say, had to be enhanced and compressed under a lot of pressure. We have to remember that this is one of the first times that the office staff need to be enhanced as well, depending on their own technological, let's say, access to normal working conditions from home in many cases. We still have, at least in Greece, at least 40% people working remotely. So that means additional connectivity issues, not only from office to vessel, but from office to office as well, which need to be solved. This, of course, brings rise to various cybersecurity issues, which, if they hadn't been solved already, companies are dealing with them currently. There needs to be, of course, an increased, let's say, sense of the use of digitalization platforms, providing real-time information from ships to the office. So most companies already have a response strategy plan. But until now, we used to have to plan for, let's say, the worst case scenario. which was, for example, spares not arriving on the vessel in time. And now the worst case scenario is, for example, spares not arriving for the next few weeks, possibly on a vessel, because some delays occur on a daily basis. And of course, we have to remember that although we have learned quite a few things, we are almost now 10 months within this pandemic. However, we do see that this is a constantly changing regulatory environment. So nothing has been settled and nothing is fixed in the way that, for example, custom clearances are working, ports are working. So we do have a lot of disruptions and we do need to be on top of all the regulatory changes. I think communication is key between vessel, as I said, and office. And we just need to be a few steps ahead than we normally are. So this is what we've been trying to do. And again, and trying to enhance and help the people who've been working from home quite successfully, because for them, it's also quite a new environment. Trying to be attentive and trying to not have lapses in judgment in a similar manner as the crew, actually, working in a lot more, in some cases, relaxed conditions and whatever that may mean, but in some cases, a lot more stressed conditions, having to juggle many things that were not normally the case. So I think this is also something that needs to be taken into account from a ship manager's point of view. The balance between office, vessel, and everybody also working in remote conditions and under stressing about their own safety and health.
Thank you, and very interesting. And it is true that 10 months into the pandemic, it is hard for someone to argue that our reality has not changed dramatically. Especially shipping companies were faced with the possibility of not be able to meet the safety requirements that they have set up due to global situation today. Mr. Hadjipetrou, in your experience, what were the lessons learned for a ship management company regarding its safety commitment, taking into consideration the challenges that humanity had to face?
Well, of course, the safety is always on top of the agenda. So in addition to what I mentioned earlier with regards to communication and being very close to the seafarers, from the ship management point of view, we had to clearly enhance the support from the office, and this refers to certain directives, the outbreak plan, which is now being constantly updated towards and sent to the ships. We have ended up even with CEO updates towards the seafarers continuously on a weekly basis. So overall, the effort of making sure that the office as well as the ship are very well coordinated is clearly something that has been revamped during the period. Obviously, the working from home has created a lot of extra work in many departments, and within, especially the crewing department, I would say these are the heroes of the pandemic, because at least within our organization, clearly the technical and the marine departments have been really the core of doing business, and crewing has been really obviously very important. But within a shipping organization, typically you have the technical and the marine people very much been leading the organization. Whereas now we hear a lot more what our crewing colleagues they have to say, and I would again call them the heroes of the period. So that's something very important in my opinion.
Thank you. I believe we all agree on that. We are in the first line. Crew is in the first line. Definitely another subject of great interest the past few years is training and maritime education. the COVID-19 pandemic has risen a number of new issues that need to be taken into consideration. Mrs. Papas, in your opinion, are young mariners sufficiently trained in order to face the safety requirements of today's shipping operations?
The everlasting question. Well, the quality of the crew and the crew's training, it lies at the heart of the shipping industry and the ship's operation and safety. And more so than ever now, with the evolution and the transformation of the shipping industry and the increased regulation, the application and installation of new technologies, digitalization, automation, concern with the environmental issues, all of these are increasingly demanding on seafarers, not only young mariners, but the experienced as well. One way to enhance the knowledge and skills of these is going through third-party training facility courses. These courses offer training for emergency cases, say for loss of propulsion, loss of steering, training for bunkering operations, bridge simulation, especially for complicated ports, like, for example, Port Hedland. One mistake there can result in the banning of a vessel for several months. The new installations of ballast water treatment systems, scrubbers, and how to properly handle those. So generally, the training never ends. And of course, technology precedes learning and education. So therefore, you can never say that they are adequately trained in the sense that, first of all, you are at sea. So the sea is unpredictable. You never know what might happen. The important thing is to give them the tools with which to create critical thinking, to constantly give them communication and update them with findings of inspections on other vessels, circulate lessons learned by incidents across the fleet, by describing, what alarms may have come out, how those were dealt with, the importance of them, distributing important notices, worldwide alerts, changing regulations, not only environmental or around the world, but as well as the ports that they are arriving at or other ports. All of this is vital. Again, I'm stressing not only for young cadets, but for experienced seafarers, because it's an ever-changing world. And we know very well that shipping is never constant. It's ever-evolving sector. So we need to remain on our toes. One thing that we like to do at Starbuck, and we have officialized, of course, pre-COVID era, was onboard training. We would send twice a year superintendents, one from the MSQ department and one technical superintendent, which would board the vessel for two reasons. First of all, to train on the job young cadets and overview the experienced seafarers, see also how they're doing, see the vessel's condition. And for sure, once a year, they would travel with the vessel so that the on-the-job training would be done and we would get better feedback both from the vessel's condition as well as the crew. This we found was very important. Of course, this cannot be done now during COVID. But what is important is to maintain continuous route of communication where you have a designated team that anything the vessel needs, there is a call number, there is a team there, there is motivation, we create incentives, or also the opportunity for seafarers and young mariners especially to have promotion within the company. And these training courses that they take can lead them to a higher position and better benefits, better financial packages. All of these are important, and especially now that COVID is going around and they have to see everything through virtual reality and decipher large amounts of information and data, comprehend and learn and relearn new machinery, equipment, navigational systems, all of these. Like I said, training does not precede innovation and technology. So we have to do whatever we can to equip both young mariners and experienced seafarers for what they have to face.
It has been difficult for them. It has been difficult for all of us in the beginning. It has been difficult for our colleagues. Mrs. Kostelac, I would like to come to you and ask you in which areas of training and marine education will EMSA place a particular emphasis on in the years to come? According to the reports that you have been receiving, in which areas of knowledge should merchant marine academies and training center shift their focus on?
Thank you for inviting us to this panel, and congratulations to the organizers for a proper gender balance in this panel. It's not very often to see that. And before I come to your question, allow me to really pay a tribute to all seafarers serving on board vessels around the globe. They are real heroes, and I'm not talking that as a political sound sentence, not as a phrase, but really, these men and women have patiently serving and ensured the continuity of the trade patterns around the world, which enables the rest of us to continue with relatively a normal life. Now, come back to your question. I will somehow divide it into the two. When we talk about trainings and appropriate trainings for the seafarers and how the academia should transfer or should react to what we are calling new era for shipping. Well, we all know that shipping, which we know today, will really look differently in 5 years perspective, or 10 years for sure, with the new propulsions on board the vessels, with new bunkers, with more automation in shipping, and even in some cases autonomous shipping. That requires new skills and new knowledge. I'm not advocating the abandon of the traditional maritime trainings and education, but we are aware that we are facing a revolution in shipping, and that needs to be addressed through the training, through the education of seafarers for the new generations. And I believe that the responsibility of transforming the skills and trainings into the new reality lies upon the international organization, if you want, from the STCW Convention, which will enter into the serious revision very soon, to the individual training institutions and, of course, the companies, because as Ms. Papa clearly said, it's a continuous exercise which never stops. When we discuss in EMSA how can we adopt our training capabilities for the future needs and future generations, you know that we are not directly engaged in the education and training of seafarers. Our stakeholders are maritime and other officers or the administrations. We train Coast Guard and other officers in Europe, but also widely, to be able to perform their task, all kinds of the tasks, from the flag state, port state, environmental search and rescue, VTMIS, and other performances taken by the flag, port, and coastal states. And in that aspect, we are also considering the future shipping and future demands from, which is not going to be applicable only on board the vessels, but also on the shore, also in the maritime and other Coast Guard functions and activities. In that context, we are developing what we call the continuous professional experience for our officers, where we are going to ensure the lifelong professional development of the officers of the maritime administration in different functions, which will be also combined with ad hoc training, which we are providing now. In that, we are using the newest technological development, including distance learning, including virtual reality, which we have recently added to our capacity building tool, and which we combine with the entire set of our distance learning tools and abilities. That proves to be very efficient, particularly now when we were not able to deliver trainings physically. Then the distance learning tool proves to be very efficient, and this is one of the lessons which we are going to gain in the next future. So if you ask me in what direction we are going to develop our tool, first of all, continuous development of professional experience of the officers of the maritime administration, and new skills and new requirements that are going to be needed in the future of tomorrow.
Thank you very much. Definitely training is vital importance, and it's one of the biggest challenges that we need to face, and we face in our everyday life, because this is the future in the industry and for all of us. I would like now to move to a different subject and touch something else, which is also of high importance, and it's related to the inspection and surveillance board. I must say at this point that I do know firsthand how much things have changed as a result of the pandemic and the traveling restriction from the classification society point of view. Mr. Hadjipetru, in your view, what has changed in ship inspection during the past few months, and how well have both Port State Control Inspection and mariners cope with this unfortunate situation? You are on mute again.
I did the same thing, apologies.
Okay.
I'll just to provide some excitement to the panel. I mean, somebody made a mistake. Just to continue from where Ms. Markovčić finished, a lesson to be learned is that, yes, we will be doing more remote training and more online educational programs and so on. And the perspective towards the ship management is that you basically need the technology in order to do that. So we will have to invest as well in technology, as well as connectivity between the ship and the office. So having that in mind, and coming to your question, the way that we have handled as an industry the surveys nowadays is obviously challenging. We have ended up with maybe a few countries like USA, Canada, and other countries doing post-state control inspections remotely. We have OCIMF, they do certain inspections remotely. We have the class societies as well adopting the remote surveying scheme. And it obviously makes sense because this is limiting the risk of people being infected, but at the same time, obviously from the seafarers' point of view and from the point of view of providing information, there is really a lot of work done by the ships to prepare for this. And this includes taking pictures, providing data electronically, and so on. So it's overall, I would say the remote surveying has worked, and it works. Obviously, there is room for improvement. We have seen, let me say, different standards generally. But when it comes to visiting the ships, it's our core activity as ship operators to visit our ships, and we need our superintendents to be able to do that. Obviously, it has become very difficult, and we are all facing significant problems with let's say, ships been dry docked during the period, or if you have major upgradings and so on. It's just simply extremely difficult for our operation. So I would say that in terms of maintaining the ship's condition to an acceptable standard, the remote surveying works, but for a short period of time. And we have to look into that. So we have to be extremely careful how long this has been continued and what changes we do in our organization so we can visit the ships more.
Mrs. Kostelac, do you have any further comment on this? You're on mute.
Okay. Thank you. Well, one of the outcome or the unpleasant result of the COVID situation is the serious decrease in the effort of the flag state and port state control globally. Within the region of Paris MOU, there has been from January to October 45% of decrease in terms of the intensity of the port state control. In some other regions like Tokyo, it was 47%, in Viña del Mar, even 55%. So globally, let's say that the intensity of the port state control, and in parallel, we are talking about the reduction of intensity of flag state, has been reduced, and that would certainly have the impact on safety. At the same time, we were all aware that there should be a rational approach to what is realistic, what the shipping industry can cope under the circumstances which we are facing. And in that context, we all know that Paris MOU has developed a guidance which recognized the need for the flexibility in terms of validity of certificates and some other flexibility. I have to underline that that flexibility does not go into the area of MLC inspection, and that quite contrary, the inspectors were called to in particular pay attention to the implementation of MLC in respect of terms of contract and in respect of the repatriation. Now, the other important aspect, in particular when we talk about the surveys, are the practice of remote survey, which has been mentioned. We have noticed that even before the crisis, a number of recognized organizations did start introducing the possibility of the remote survey, partially or even in the wider sense. Now we have developed a report on the use of remote surveys in the classification society practice for the purpose of the European Commission, and we are going to look more in depth in what way such a performance could be further regulated and further harmonized, so that again we can use it as the practice even after the crisis under the regulated and controlled terms.
Thank you. And definitely crew changes, as you mentioned, and repatriation. It's something, it has become a major issue that we face for months now, and with numerous discussion. And we have seen a refusal of several states to allow crew changes. I would like to welcome Mr. Theoharidis, who have been very patient for quite some time now. And I would like to ask him the first question. What do you think went wrong with the apparent failure of many states to understand the need for crew changes, as well as the importance for the safety of the ship? Can we have your views on that?
Absolutely. Well, first, let me join my previous esteemed panelist here, thanking you for the organization of this event. I think it's very important actually to open a discussion again on safety, which is always in the center of the maritime discussion. Now, regarding your question, let me say that there are actually two ways of looking at this matter. First, we could say we could look at the trees. In other words, the particular issues that went wrong. It's quite a heavy expression. Things that did not function well. And then we need to look also, to the whole picture, the forest, to have a holistic approach. Now, I heard earlier a lot of things which definitely point towards the direction that some of the mechanisms that we have established apparently have deficiencies. And to be honest, the system as we know it is actually working to the limits. We already knew, let me just give you an example. We already knew that there were issues about entering goods in some particular areas, the clearance that was required in customs, the attempt to have a single window, which is, again, a topic under discussion. And now we see that this is a serious issue. So these are the things that point towards the direction that some of the things that we have already, as I said, put in place with also the legal framework do not seem to function properly. But now we need to see the whole picture. Do we believe as society that the shipping world and especially the seafarers are considered an essential part? In other words, what is the attitude that the society has towards shipping? There is an expression which says, no shipping, no shopping. We all know that ships do their job quietly at night. They come to load, then they discharge the goods. People do not really see what is happening. And that, I think, is one thing which also caused many states not to realize what was at stake. Another example, we know very well that the the MLC, the convention which is relating and prescribing specific obligations for labor conditions on board ships, this again now has come to the limits. Fatigue, even from before, we knew very well that this is an important parameter which leads in many cases in errors. But now we see that many member states cannot really discharge their duties in respect of these obligations. So I would say that while I cannot point towards certain things, and probably it would be inappropriate to point at specific things, I can see that many of these matters, because they are really functioning in the limit with the COVID unprecedented circumstance, I think that seems to be an important issue.
Thank you. I believe it is clear for all of us being in the shipping industry that without ships moving commodities and goods all over the world would have feel totally different. But it seems that not all the states have a very clear understanding of that. Mrs. Laskaridis, do you have any comment on this?
I would actually like to add, if it's possible, that yes, usually for something to go wrong, many things have to go wrong. Unfortunately, we've seen in this particular case that, first of all, from the side of the shipping industry, I think the shipping industry has failed to campaign effectively, have failed to campaign rightfully and sufficiently for seafarers. I think ship owners didn't do it effectively, shipping organizations didn't do it effectively, shipping organizations working for the benefit of the seafarers didn't do it effectively. There has been an absolute failure, in my view, of governments to treat seafarers as key workers, as we saw key workers being having a right to governmental aid, which didn't happen, of course, for seafarers, considering that, yes, indeed, more than 90% of global trade is transferred by shipping. It's almost an impossibility to not recognize the central role that seafarers play in the global economy. And yet, even though this percentage is quite clear, we see that there was, as the professor said earlier, an out of sight, out of mind perception when it came to world shipping and how this is affected by COVID, although it never stopped. Most of the other industries did. All hospitality industries, travel industries, everything almost came to a halt, except for shipping. So instead of actually trying to find out why that is happening and how come shipping didn't stop, and to include, let's say, these people within the key worker scheme that many governments are doing, they still have failed to do this. So this has had a direct effect on the way that seafarers have been feeling on board, from feeling at the beginning of the pandemic, as was said earlier, protected, to feeling as they have been traveling in a floating jail. So this has had a direct effect on how they have been behaving on board, how they have been feeling on board. And of course, this stress and tension is then transferred towards the ship management company. So I think there are reasons, and that is basically a failure on many aspects to recognize the importance of seafarers.
So we'll all agree that we're living a global emergency, and we need to call for global solidarity. Touching this point, I would like to ask Mrs. Kostelac and Mr. Tarasis, what is the role of the international associations, such as Intercargo and EMSA that you are representing, in the immediate and coordinated response in time of crisis? What are the lessons we have learned from COVID-19 rapid outbreak? Mrs. Kostelac, would you like to start first? You're on mute. Yes, I think
now we can hear each other. Let me start by echoing what has been said, actually. I'm serving in maritime for decades. And it has always been said, even much before this crisis, that simply the PR of shipping industry is defensive. Shipping industry is recognized usually in the negative context. Seafarers are not marching against anything in the streets in front of the government, and that's why maybe they are not seeing, and the benefits are not presenting as it should be. So that is something we should all learn, not just from this crisis, but generally. We should be, let's say, more or less modest. We who are serving in different aspects of shipping industry, less modest, showing the benefits this industry is providing to the globe. Even now, during the crisis, as you have pointed out at the beginning of this panel. What can we do, or what should be done from the level of the international organizations to the level of the European regional organizations, including my agency? Well, in the terms of this crisis, I have counted here in front of me, there were 6 different UN communications from different levels. From the IMO, from the joint IMO, ILO, in ICAO, from the General Secretary of the UN, all referring to the same, the importance of ensuring the key worker status for seafarers, all ensuring the continuity. The same, or even the strengthen, was the activities of the European Commission in European framework. Again, calling with the mechanisms that we had in place to the national administration to dedicate seafarers as the key worker. Still, there is no legal harmonized and fully harmonized legal framework that would ensure the implementation of such measures. The implementation of the guidances and the recommendations were in the hands and still are in the hands of the national administration. So maybe it's the time to think whether we need a more robust framework for such a crisis, which will ensure that the industry that is global in the nature have the same context. That is one of the key messages, I would say. What we have done as the agency, we have done what we can with the tools which we had in our hands. So at the beginning, where the crisis began, one of the trigger which we faced, or one of the weakest part, was the lack of the information and the huge amount of misinformation. So what we did, we create a platform to exchange the information on the measures that are in place in different parts of Europe and different parts of the world, so that both the industry and the national administrations and the seafarers knows what they can expect in different parts of Europe and globally. That was first what we have done. Then we have joined forces with ACDC at the European level to develop a guidance to assist one of the most affected parts of the shipping industry, the cruise sector, to reestablish their services based again on, of course, fulfilling the safety rules and standards which needs to be in place. On top of them, we have, and we are still providing weekly service of showing the influence on the COVID to the shipping industry. And now we have entered into the study, which we are going to deliver in next month, the study that will show the full-scale effect of the COVID on shipping industry, which could serve to the national administration when defining the recovery measure in different sectors of economy.
Thank you very much. Mr. Tarasis, wearing your other hat as a vice chairman of Intercargo, do you have any comment on this?
It's difficult to wear two hats sometimes, but when you have the on-hands experience on shipping, then sometimes it's very valuable also. So I would agree with all the previous speakers that they said that we have failed to communicate what the industry is doing to the world. We are just somebody that we carry most of the things that we all use and nobody knows about it. And we have failed to, let's say, give acknowledgement to our most valuable assets, who are the people that are on board and on shore, and they are doing these things. Now, as Intercargo, I could say 10, 20, 30 things that we have done. We have been in the industry task force. We are continuously talking about guidelines, about protocols, about what IMO should do, about what we should do. We have written maybe 50 letters to all governments around the world to support us. But to be short and blunt, we have all failed. All organizations, we have failed to give the world what we mean about that. We have failed to support our people and our industry. And for me, the only thing that we could do as a shipping industry and shipping owners to make people understand is stop the ships for 5 days. And then everybody will come and say, yes, what is going to happen? Really, we have support from no one, not from the governments, not from the port state controls, not from the embassies that are closed all around the world, not from anyone. And we are still doing our job. I think that we should make clear to the world that we need support and the people on board need support. And as I said before, the time is short. We are not here to say what we are doing. What we are doing is effective, is efficient, is resilient. We are still working, we are still doing that, but we cannot continue to do that in the future if the situation does not change. So no matter as a ship owner or as Intercargo or as anybody else, we need to give the world the sign that this thing has to change course. Otherwise, we are going to face more difficulties, and safety, I think we will talk about safety a lot if this continues.
It is very true that the public opinion is perceiving shipping as a very privileged industry, which is definitely for all of us that work in it, it's not exactly like that. Mr. Theocharidis, having a more overall view from your position as professor in the university, do you have any comment on this?
Well, I'm an academic, but actually for 20 years, I was also a practicing lawyer. And I consider that this is very important because sometimes the academia seems to be too theoretical. But I venture to say that this is actually the most challenging question. Let me just start by saying what are really the international organizations, especially IMO, which is in our area, according also to UNCLOS, the competent organization. The international organizations are the cement which is supposed to form the bonds between the member states. In other words, the member states have legal regimes in their own legal order, but then there are rules which come from these international organizations, and they're supposed to be also adopted, implemented, and enforced. However, and this is something that I would like here to point the significance. Yes, we do have international rules. We do have international conventions which come from IMO, but it's always the prerogative of the state how they will implement and enforce those rules. And I'm not talking about the cases where an international convention comes into a country, is ratified, and then it's ignored. I'm talking about the cases where genuinely the state does not have the proper capacity to do it. And as I say to students, and this is something very unique, the ship, while it flies its own flag, at the time that it enters the waters of one state, it actually switches legal regime. And every time it goes to another state to carry out the trade, they change legal regime. Now, in order to comply with this legal regime, under normal circumstances, you would need to spend a lot of money, first to comply with the regulations and then to pay for the marine insurance. Now, with international conventions, this is supposed to be done in a more convenient way. And indeed, we have achieved quite a lot. But I think we always should remember that the states have the last word. And I would say that it's not the case that the international organizations have failed really to carry out the duties. I would say this should be brought at another level. The member states and how, as I said earlier, once they ratify the convention, how they implement it. This is something very important because once you have rules which are uniformly applied, then you don't have an issue. But when, because of a mechanism that you have internally, this cannot be done. In other words, the state does not discharge its duty towards the other member states in a proper way, then you have a serious problem.
Definitely. And we hear now for the last 1 hour a lot of challenge that we have faced during the pandemic, the last 10 months. And we have tried to dig deep enough and trying to understand the reasons and what we could have done better, how things can improve. And prior, I will go to our final question that will be addressed to all of you. And looking to the questions that we start receiving from the audience, I would like to ask if anyone from our panelists, who are mostly coming from the ship management, it is an interesting question that I see. All the challenges are mostly addressed to the ship managers, but how are the charterers backing up ship management company in these difficult times? Does any one of you would like to take the floor and answer this question?
I mean, it's very easy question, really. They are not backing up.
I was about to say that it's quite a tricky question because we don't have the proper capacity to do it. So I would probably abstain from making any comments on their behalf.
I think, sorry, can I just add very quickly that the only support, for example, that we have seen is from long-standing relationships. I think the best that charters can do in this case is to support the relationship with serious owners and the efforts that they are doing, considering how demanding some of the things going on now. In some cases, we have been successful in sharing some costs with charterers, but this would only happen in long-established relationships. And this is not the norm for sure.
Yeah, if I may add, I completely agree with Susanna, and that's what I was also going to say, that unless it's a long-standing relationship, the support that we receive is not really there, actually. And that is one of the problems for crew changes. When there are mandatory deviations, say because you need to go to ports like Australia, where you have a crew member that's been on board for more than 11 months, so you need to deviate whether you want to or not, which you do. Charters not only put you up higher, but they don't give you consent, and at times they don't allow you. So then you need, especially if the vessels are loaded, so then you have to find other solutions and pay extravagant amounts, which is not the problem. That's the easy solution, if there is that solution though. But abstaining from giving consent and allowing the vessels to deviate for the sake of human mental capacity, psychological stress, and health issues is to me a huge problem that charters should be, in a way, even have a more obligation and more so.
And the problem is, continuing what the ladies say, that now we find appearing in the charter parties clauses for no crew changes. So it's not a matter of a deviation or a matter of who is paying the cost. We are paying the cost and we are paying the deviation. No charterer would accept that. The problem is that now they don't allow us even to charter the vessel if we are going to do crew changes, even though the country that we are going allows us to do. So you see now charterers are teaming up to make teams that will support greenhouse gases, will support many things in the future. But as you see, where is their corporate responsibility regarding human element on board the ships? I really fail to see that. And it's becoming more and more often right now.
Closing this very interesting discussion, I would like to address a final question to all of you and ask you, which do you think will be the main challenges regarding maritime safety for the year to come, 2021? May I start with Mrs. Kostelac?
Thank you. If you allow me, I will transform your question into the challenges and opportunities, not to finalize with a very dark picture of the industry, which again will send the wrong signal. 2021 in the safety picture will reflect certainly 2020. We all know that at least first half of 2021 will not look much different than the 2020. So I would certainly underline the challenge that relates to the lack of normal exchange of crew, combined with the less flag and port state control, which actually gives the additional burden or additional effort on the first line of defense, which are companies and crew. And if you put that in the context with irregular exchange of crews, that will certainly create the challenge or the additional pressure to maritime safety. But on top of that, we are going to have the, let's say, those regular safety concerns, but also the new options or new possibilities. We are in EMSA concentrated on the issues relating to the safety of container vessels, the safe exchange or safe boarding and disboarding of passengers on board the large passenger ships, which is not at the moment actual, but it will become again on the high priority. We are in putting in focus the relationship between the environmental standards and in particular new bunker and new fuels vis-a-vis safety standards and how the two will fly together. This is in our, let's say, priority agenda. But when I said I want to see also the light at the end of the tunnel, this area gives us the opportunity also to consider how fast we can transform our industry into the more green industry, into the industry which will be more inclusive, even more attractive for new generations of seafarers. And in this post-COVID area, we should stream our industry into that direction.
So true. Thank you. Mrs. Laskaridis?
I think we will firstly start seeing some effects, let's say, from many perspectives. I mean, we all know it appears that this is a continuing situation. It doesn't seem to be going anywhere, at least for the coming months. So there will be continuous challenges regarding, again, as we said, the crew changes, crew fatigue, machinery maintenance, and catching up on machinery maintenance that has been lapsed possibly during 2021, trying to reestablish a full connection wherever this has been lost between office and vessel, making sure again that there's a full alertness in communications in all fronts, which, as we all know, it can be the case when, let's say, people have been working for many months in a situation that is far from normal. So this can also have effects on their lapse of judgment, whether these are people working from home for many months. Well, generally, I mean, the lack of alertness, which, of course, in shipping is almost a priority, number one. We do think that there will be a continuation of piracy incidents, which, although the pandemic slowed many things down, it did not slow down piracy. We did have increased situations of piracy globally, which was also very surprising regarding, when it came to dealing with the pandemic as well. You would think that pirates were deterred by interacting with other nationalities, but no. So this seems to be a continuing trend, especially in West Africa. And we will have to deal with, of course, whatever regulatory effects this post-COVID era brings as well. So I think it will be an interesting year. Not too many changes, but of course, quite a few challenges that need to be dealt with in order for, let's say, a clean slate, so we can go ahead.
To keep us busy and our life interesting. Ms. Papas.
I would have to echo a lot of the things said from the previous ladies. I think that 2021, if that's what we're talking about and not further, will reflect a rollover of the problems that we're seeing in 2020 until a vaccine might be found or a cure for COVID-19. But I would like to steer the discussion in another challenge that I think we will be facing in 2021, and that is the one of increased digitalization and automation, which COVID has accelerated and expedited. The technology and automation facilitate seafarers' job and allow for remote monitoring of the vessels. This also creates more susceptibility for cyber attacks. And of course, if there's a cyber attack and there's a risk of safety of going into the AIS or the GPSs or EGDIS and being able to tamper it or hack it, if it's not sufficiently protected, puts the vessel and the crew at serious risk. So I think that one of the things that we need to focus in 2021 is building our cyber system protections, the firewalls, the installation of endpoint protection systems, and any prevention mechanisms that we may come across or that might come about, just to add something different than what we have discussed so far.
Mr. Hadjipetrou, the floor is yours.
You know, very well said by the ladies. So I'm trying to figure out what to add on top. And you know what? Maybe what we should also emphasize is to keep our positive way of thinking and our positive approach towards managing the ships and the relationships and also the contacts as we are now meeting online rather than face-to-face. I would say that clearly the crew change protocol is essential because this will affect the safety of the ships considerably. But overall, we have proven to be a resilient industry, and I like to believe that next year at the same time, we will all be more efficient with regards to our communications, our systems, our approach towards the seafarers as the real assets of the organization. So for me, the challenge is to stay positive and make sure that we continuously improve our operations because the challenge of harmonizing the crew changes worldwide and so on, unfortunately we can try very, very hard, but perhaps the national security of the countries will not allow for a harmonized approach. But the more we talk jointly and we lobby jointly, the more chances we have to be successful.
Okay. Mr. Tarasis, the floor is yours.
Well, everything has been said. I have been covered by the previous speakers. I would just add, don't lose human interaction. This will be the most challenging part next year. We need to be in contact with our crew face to face, not only between us at the office, which we also lost, but also on board the ships. And I think this will be the most important thing that we will have to take care of. All the others, more or less, we are going to manage. And don't forget that we have to invent new fuels. 2030 is very close.
Very, very close. I'm not sure that the industry is ready for that, but it's getting very close.
We are going to invent it, don't worry.
We always a very adaptable industry, I would say. Mr. Theocharidis, your comments on the challenge of 2021?
Well, definitely I will endorse what was said by the previous speakers. I think the ladies covered actually most of what has to be on the table. From my side, I would probably call for something which is more general. We actually all talk about the organizational culture of each stakeholder. The ship owning companies, the management companies, the states, the administration, the international organizations. So the question is, what is really the organizational culture in each of these institutions? and also stakeholders, as I mentioned earlier. How do they do their work? Once they assess what has happened in the previous period and do the corrective action, I think this is probably one of the biggest challenges, to accept when you do proper critique what you've done and what you failed to do. I think this is probably the biggest challenge. And just to bring also the Agenda 2030 on the table, remember, Sustainable Goal 17 is talking about partnerships in the achievement of goals. Definitely, there has to be cooperation, collaboration, synergy between all those stakeholders. And especially for shipping, I would probably call for a shift from this profile that shipping currently has. We've seen, and it was actually raised earlier, that in most cases, shipping is actually defending negative actions. States, when there is a pollution especially, they're in the center of criticism. I think it's now time for shipping to ensure, again, through that organizational culture, to ensure that the proper impression is formulated in the society. So I think this is probably the biggest challenge for all stakeholders.
Very interesting.
I'm very sorry, but I would just like to add something that I think joins what the two previous gentlemen said regarding the culture within at least a ship management company. We have been spending so much, let's say, time and effort for team building and successful cooperation between everybody who works within an organization. And now we're trying to completely dismantle this into something different without losing the characteristics and the culture of each organization. That in itself is quite a task that normally would take years to happen, not just a few months that we are called to do so. So I think that is also a challenge in itself that we need to address, dismantling our team and putting it back together, in other terms, not even allowed to go near each other.
Yes. Definitely very interesting point from all of you for the year to come, which remains to be seen. We have quite a number of questions from the audience. Unfortunately, we don't have a lot of time, very little time in front of us. People are asking about home working, that it had become very popular in other industry, and if we feel that this will happen on the shipping industry as well, which is, as I mentioned, is quite cost effective. I would say from experience, shipping is an industry that we are used to work 365 days, 24/7. Home working was our life before COVID. I believe that we're the first industry that we have adapted ourselves very, very easily and quickly on that. So it was part of our life before. It is today, and will definitely remain in the year to come. As we are having Mrs. Lascaridi with us, and we have a question that I believe that she may be the most appropriate person. People are asking advice about shore personnel candidates, what they should do to have a more valuable CV. It seems that recent graduates seems to have less and less chances in our day. Would you like to have a very quick comment on that?
A very quick comment that it is very unfortunate, and we do know that recent graduates are like, let's say, the foothold of all industries. And unfortunately, they haven't been given, again, a chance to be more interactive and join companies. Of course, unfortunately, this now is an occasion that it doesn't have to do with the companies not wanting to take part, but in even instances that they do want to take part in internship programs, for example. Now, of course, is a time of great health concern, so this is not even possible, even though many companies might want to. My only advice would be, as we have said in the past, is to continue education in any level that may be, whether that be on, we've seen a full surge in online webinars. We hope people are watching that might want to learn something or hear another different point of view. There are very many seminars and webinars going on, and I do encourage everybody to continue any type of education they can until these times are behind us and we can all start interacting normally again.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. I would like to thank all the panelists for their very interesting and fruitful discussion. I believe that we have shared very valuable and important points, all of us. I would like to thank ISALOS.net and Real-Time Graduate for this initiative and putting us all together. I would like to thank the sponsor of the event, Sivan and Milaki Group. And I would like to wish you all safe days. Stay safe, stay healthy. And I hope I will meet you all in person very, very soon. Thank you very much. And for those who have a Dimitri, which is a name day, quite famous in Greece, happy name day to Dimitris and Dimitra. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye.